In the heart of Vatican City, where centuries-old traditions blended seamlessly with modern challenges, Pope Leo XIV stood as a figure of quiet strength and wisdom. He was not like other popes who had come before him. While deeply rooted in faith, he believed that religion should not remain confined within the walls of churches, but should reach out to touch the lives of ordinary people in meaningful ways. His progressive views often sparked debates among those around him, yet no one could deny the genuine compassion he carried for humanity. Every morning, as sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of his private chapel, Pope Leo XIV would sit quietly, praying not just for peace, but also for guidance on how to bridge gaps between different worlds. One day, while flipping through a magazine during a rare moment of leisure, the Pope stumbled upon an article about Keanu Reeves. It wasn't a typical celebrity profile filled with glitz and glamour. Instead, it focused on the actor's humility, kindness, and resilience, despite personal tragedies. The piece highlighted how Keanu had lost loved ones far too early in life. His best friend, his sister, even a child he never got to hold, and yet he continued to move forward without bitterness. What struck Pope Leo XIV most was the way Keanu seemed untouched by ego, despite being celebrated globally for his work in movies. Instead of flaunting wealth or fame, the actor lived modestly, gave generously, and treated everyone he met with respect. As Pope Leo XIV read further, he found himself nodding slowly. There was something profoundly spiritual about Keanu's approach to life. A quiet acknowledgement of pain, coupled with an unwavering determination to keep giving back to the world. The Pope felt a deep connection to this man, even though they had never met. He wondered if their shared values, humility, empathy, and service, could somehow create a bridge between faith and popular culture. After all, Keanu wasn't just an entertainer. He was someone millions looked up to, someone whose actions spoke louder than words. If the Pope could collaborate with him, perhaps together they could inspire others to live more meaningful lives. But reaching out to someone like Keanu Reeves wasn't a decision to be taken lightly. The Pope knew that any interaction involving public figures required careful thought and planning. He called for Father Matteo, one of his most trusted advisors, to discuss the idea. When Father Matteo arrived, Pope Leo XIV handed him the magazine and explained his thoughts. "I believe we have an opportunity here," the Pope said softly, his voice steady, yet filled with conviction. "Keanu is not just an actor, he is a symbol of hope for many. Imagine what we could achieve if we combined our voices." Father Matteo listened intently, his brow furrowing slightly as he considered the implications. "Your Holiness," he began cautiously, "while your intentions are noble, there may be risks involved. Some might see this as unconventional, even controversial." The Pope nodded, acknowledging the potential backlash. But then he leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with resolve. "Sometimes, my dear friend, we must step outside tradition to meet people where they are. Faith should not isolate itself from the world. It should engage with it. And who better to help us do that than someone like Keanu?" Convinced of the importance of this mission, Pope Leo XIV decided to write a letter personally inviting Keanu to visit the Vatican. He spent hours crafting the message, ensuring every word conveyed sincerity and purpose. In the letter, he praised Keanu's character and expressed admiration for his ability to inspire others. He also hinted at the possibility of collaborating on a project aimed at promoting truth, justice, and reconciliation, a theme close to the Pope's heart. Once the letter was sent, the waiting began. Days turned into weeks, and the Pope couldn't help but wonder if Keanu would respond. Would someone so famous and busy take time out of their schedule to meet with him? To everyone's surprise, Keanu replied promptly, accepting the invitation with grace and humility. In his response, he admitted feeling honored by the request and expressed curiosity about what such a meeting might entail. The news thrilled Pope Leo XIV, who immediately began preparing for Keanu's arrival. Security details were arranged discreetly, ensuring the actor's privacy throughout his visit. Meanwhile, Keanu prepared for the journey with equal care. Despite his global recognition, he preferred to travel low-key, avoiding unnecessary attention. As he boarded the plane to Rome, he couldn't shake off a sense of anticipation. What would it be like to meet the Pope? What kind of conversation awaited them? When Keanu finally stepped foot in Vatican City, he was awestruck by its beauty and history. St. Peter's Square stretched out before him, vast and majestic, with its towering columns and intricate statues. Tourists milled about, snapping photos and marveling at the architecture. But Keanu moved quietly, almost reverently, taking in the sacred atmosphere. A small group of papal aides greeted him warmly and escorted him to a private entrance where Pope Leo XIV waited patiently. When the two men finally came face to face, there was an instant connection, a mutual respect that transcended titles and fame. "Welcome, Mr. Reeves," the Pope said, extending his hand with a warm smile. Keanu shook it firmly, returning the gesture with equal warmth. "Thank you, Your Holiness," he replied simply, his tone polite but tinged with awe. They exchanged pleasantries briefly before retreating indoors, away from prying eyes. Inside, the air was cool and serene, offering a stark contrast to the bustling square outside. As they walked side by side through ornate hallways adorned with priceless artwork, Keanu couldn't help but feel humbled by the weight of history surrounding him. Their first moments together were marked by easy conversation, as though they were old friends reuniting after years apart. Pope Leo XIV led Keanu to a cozy sitting room, where tea and light refreshments awaited. Over steaming cups of Earl Grey, they began discussing everything from art and literature to philosophy and spirituality. The Pope listened intently as Keanu opened up about his struggles with loss and how those experiences shaped his perspective on life. In turn, Keanu absorbed the Pope's insights on faith and forgiveness, finding comfort in the simplicity of his teachings. As the afternoon wore on, their bond grew stronger. Both men realized they shared a common desire to make the world a better place, one act of kindness at a time. For Pope Leo XIII, this meeting reinforced his belief that bridges could indeed be built between seemingly disparate worlds. For Keanu, it was a reminder that true greatness lay not in accolades or achievements, but in the quiet moments when one chose to uplift others. By the time evening fell, neither man wanted the conversation to end. Little did they know, this was only the beginning of something far greater, a partnership destined to leave an indelible mark on the hearts of countless individuals worldwide. The next morning, sunlight poured into the Vatican, casting golden hues over its ancient stone walls. Pope Leo XIV rose early, as was his habit, and spent a few moments in quiet reflection. His mind kept returning to the previous day's meeting with Keanu Reeves. There was something about the actor that resonated deeply with him. Perhaps it was the sincerity in his eyes or the way he carried himself with such humility despite his fame. Whatever it was, the Pope felt certain that their collaboration could spark something extraordinary. With renewed determination, he made his way to the papal library, where they had agreed to continue their conversation. Keanu arrived shortly after, dressed casually in jeans and a simple sweater. He seemed more relaxed this time, as though the initial awe of being in the Vatican had settled into a calm appreciation. The two men greeted each other warmly before settling into comfortable chairs surrounded by towering shelves filled with centuries-old books. The room smelled faintly of aged paper and polished wood, creating an atmosphere of timeless wisdom. It was here, amidst the echoes of history, that their discussion took a deeper turn. Pope Leo XIV began by sharing stories of people he had encountered during his travels, ordinary individuals who faced unimaginable hardships yet found strength through faith and community. He spoke of widows rebuilding their lives after losing husbands to war, children overcoming poverty with the help of education, and refugees finding hope in new beginnings. Each story was laced with lessons about resilience, compassion, and the power of collective effort. Keanu listened intently, nodding occasionally as if piecing together a larger picture. When the Pope paused, Keanu leaned forward slightly, his expression thoughtful. "I've seen some of these struggles up close," Keanu admitted softly. "When I lost my best friend River, it felt like the ground beneath me disappeared. And then later, when I lost my daughter, Well, let's just say there were days I didn't think I'd make it. His voice wavered briefly, but he quickly steadied himself. What kept me going wasn't anything big or dramatic. It was the small acts of kindness from others. A stranger offering condolences, a fan saying my movies helped them get through tough times. Those little things reminded me that we're all connected, even when it doesn't feel like it. The Pope nodded, his gaze steady and full of understanding. That is precisely why faith matters, he said gently. It reminds us that no one is truly alone. Even in our darkest moments, there is always a thread connecting us to something greater, to each other, to God, to the universe itself. But sometimes people need reminders of that connection. They need to see examples of love and kindness in action. Their conversation shifted naturally toward the challenges facing society today. Pope Leo XIV expressed concern about the growing divisions between people, political tensions, racial inequalities, economic disparities. He believed that many of these issues stemmed from a lack of empathy and understanding. We live in an age where information moves faster than ever, he explained, but real connection seems harder to find. People are quick to judge, slow to listen. We must change that. Keanu agreed wholeheartedly. Having worked in Hollywood for decades, he had witnessed firsthand how easy it was for people to become isolated within their own bubbles. In entertainment, you see a lot of superficial relationships, he said. People pretend to care because it benefits them. But when the cameras stop rolling, those connections vanish. It's sad, really. I think what the world needs now is authenticity. People willing to show up for each other without expecting anything in return. As the hours passed, their dialogue grew richer and more focused. Both men realized they shared a vision, a desire to inspire others to embrace truth, seek justice, and work toward reconciliation. Pope Leo XIV proposed an idea. What if they joined forces to amplify voices often ignored or silenced? He envisioned using Keanu's platform to highlight stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, acts of courage, forgiveness, and unity. These stories could serve as reminders that change starts with individuals, not institutions. Keanu hesitated. At first, while he appreciated the Pope's enthusiasm, he was wary of stepping too far into the public eye. Fame had taught him to value privacy, and he preferred letting his actions speak louder than words. But the Pope's passion was infectious. You don't have to do this alone, he assured Keanu. Think of it as planting seeds. You share your story, and others will be inspired to share theirs. Together, we can create a ripple effect, a movement toward healing and connection. Eventually, Keanu nodded, his decision firm. If this can help even one person feel less alone, then it's worth it, he said. With that agreement, they began brainstorming ideas for their collaboration. They discussed everything from interviews and public appearances to documentaries and social media campaigns. Their goal was clear: to reach as many people as possible and encourage them to take meaningful action in their own communities. By the end of the day, they had sketched out a rough plan. One key element would involve traveling to places affected by conflict or hardship, meeting with locals and listening to their stories. Another would focus on creating content that celebrated acts of kindness and resilience. Throughout the planning process, both men remained mindful of keeping their efforts grounded and authentic. This wasn't about grand gestures or flashy productions. It was about fostering genuine connections and inspiring others to do the same. As evening approached, Keanu stood to leave, thanking the Pope for his hospitality and insight. I'm honored to be part of this, he said sincerely. Pope Leo XIV smiled, placing a hand on Keanu's shoulder. The honor is mine, he replied. Together we can remind the world of what truly matters. Over the following weeks, preparations for their project gained momentum. A small team of trusted advisors and creatives was assembled to assist with logistics and content creation. Meanwhile, news of their collaboration began to leak, capturing the curiosity of media outlets worldwide. Speculation ran rampant about what exactly the Pope and Keanu Reeves were planning, but neither man paid much attention to the buzz. Their focus remained firmly on the message they wanted to convey, that truth, justice, and reconciliation were not abstract ideals, but tangible goals everyone could strive for. When the official announcement finally came, it sent waves of excitement across the globe. Social media platforms lit up with reactions from fans and critics alike. Some praised the unlikely partnership, calling it a bold step toward bridging divides. Others questioned whether it was merely a publicity stunt. But for those who tuned in to watch their first joint appearance, any doubts quickly faded. Standing side by side in St. Peter's Square, Pope Leo XIV and Keanu Reeves addressed a crowd of thousands, their words echoing not just through the square but around the world. Today we stand united not because of titles or fame, the Pope declared, his voice strong yet gentle, but because we believe in the power of human connection. In a world often divided by fear and misunderstanding, we must choose to build bridges instead of walls. Keanu followed with a heartfelt speech of his own, recounting personal experiences and urging listeners to practice kindness in their daily lives. Small actions matter, he emphasized. A smile, a kind word, a helping hand. These things may seem insignificant, but they can change someone's entire day or even their life. The audience erupted in applause, moved by the sincerity of their words. Strangers embraced, tears flowed freely, and promises were made to carry the message forward. For Pope Leo XIV and Keanu Reeves, this was only the beginning. Ahead lay countless opportunities to inspire, uplift, and unite. Together, they had taken the first step toward igniting a global movement, one rooted in love, compassion, and the belief that every person has the power to make a difference. The days following their first public appearance together were a whirlwind of activity for both Pope Leo XIV and Keanu Reeves. News of their collaboration spread like wildfire, capturing the attention of people from all corners of the globe. Social media platforms buzzed with excitement as fans shared clips of their speeches, memes celebrating their unlikely partnership, and heartfelt messages about how their words had touched lives. For many, it was the first time they had seen such a powerful alliance between faith and popular culture. The sheer magnitude of the response overwhelmed even the most seasoned members of their teams, who worked tirelessly to manage the flood of inquiries and support. Despite the chaos, Pope Leo XIV remained calm and focused. He spent his mornings in prayer, seeking guidance on how best to nurture this budding movement. Each day brought new challenges, logistical hurdles, skeptical voices, and the daunting task of ensuring their efforts stayed true to their core mission. Yet, he approached every obstacle with patience and determination, reminding himself that this was not about fame or recognition, but about planting seeds of hope in a world desperate for connection. Keanu, too, embraced the challenge with quiet resolve. Though unused to being at the center of such widespread attention, he handled it gracefully, letting his actions speak louder than any headline ever could. Their next step involved traveling to places affected by conflict or hardship, where they hoped to listen to the stories of ordinary people and amplify their voices. The first destination on their itinerary was a small village in Lebanon, home to countless refugees who had fled war-torn regions in search of safety. As their convoy arrived, dusty roads lined with makeshift shelters stretched out before them. Children played barefoot in the dirt while women carried water jugs under the scorching sun. Despite the harsh conditions, there was an undeniable spirit of resilience in the air, a quiet determination to rebuild shattered lives. Pope Leo XIV stepped out of the car, his white cassock standing out against the muted tones of the landscape. Beside him, Keanu walked humbly, dressed in simple clothes that blended seamlessly with the surroundings. They were greeted warmly by local leaders and villagers alike, who welcomed them with open arms despite having little to offer. Over the course of several days, they sat with families, sharing meals and hearing firsthand accounts of loss, survival, and hope. One elderly woman recounted how she had lost her husband and sons to violence, but still found strength to care for her grandchildren. A young boy shyly showed Keanu a drawing he had made, a picture of a house surrounded by trees, symbolizing his dream of returning home someday. These interactions left a profound impact on both men, Pope Leo XIV marveled at the courage displayed by these individuals, whose faith in humanity had somehow survived unimaginable suffering. Keanu, meanwhile, felt a deep sense of gratitude for his own blessings, yes, but also for the privilege of bearing witness to such raw, unfiltered truth. "It's easy to forget how strong people are when you're living comfortably," he remarked one evening as they reviewed footage captured during the visit. "But here, you see it everywhere. It's humbling." Back in Vatican City, their team worked diligently to compile the stories they had gathered into a documentary-style project. The goal was to create something authentic and accessible, a visual testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Clips of interviews were interspersed with scenes of daily life in the village. Children laughing as they flew kites made from scraps of fabric, mothers cooking over open fires, elders gathering to share stories under starlit skies. Narration provided context, but the real power lay in the voices of the villagers themselves, speaking directly to viewers without filters or embellishments. Meanwhile, social media campaigns began gaining traction, encouraging people worldwide to participate in acts of kindness inspired by the Pope and Keanu's message. Hashtags like Truth in Action and Kindness Matters trended globally, accompanied by posts showcasing everything from random acts of generosity to community-driven initiatives aimed at fostering unity. A teacher in Brazil organized a food drive for struggling families. A group of teenagers in Canada cleaned up a local park. In India, volunteers built a library for underprivileged children using recycled materials. Each story added fuel to the growing movement, proving that change didn't require grand gestures, just a willingness to show up for others. As momentum built, invitations poured in from organizations eager to partner with them. Universities requested keynote speeches, nonprofits sought endorsements, and festivals wanted them to headline events. While flattered by the attention, Pope Leo XIV and Keanu carefully selected opportunities that aligned with their mission, avoiding anything that might dilute their message. One such event took place in New York City, where they addressed a packed auditorium filled with students, activists, and thought leaders. Standing side by side on stage, they spoke passionately about the importance of empathy, forgiveness, and action. "Empathy is more than just feeling sorry for someone," Pope Leo XIV explained. "It's about truly understanding their pain and doing whatever you can to ease it. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to let go of bitterness so you can move forward. And action. Action is what turns compassion into change." Keanu echoed these sentiments, sharing personal anecdotes about times when small acts of kindness had transformed his outlook on life. "You don't have to be rich or famous to make a difference," he said. "Sometimes the smallest things, a kind word, a helping hand, can leave the biggest impact." Their words resonated deeply with the audience, sparking conversations that continued long after the event ended. Attendees exchanged contact information, brainstorming ways to collaborate on projects back home. Some pledged to volunteer regularly, while others committed to mentoring youth or advocating for marginalized communities. The energy in the room was palpable, a testament to the ripple effect their message was creating. Not everyone, however, was convinced of the authenticity of their efforts. Critics argued that the partnership was nothing more than a clever PR stunt designed to boost Keanu's image or modernize the Catholic Church's appeal. Skeptics pointed to the glitz and glamour surrounding their appearances, accusing them of prioritizing optics over substance. But Pope Leo XIV and Keanu refused to engage with negativity. Instead, they let their actions speak for themselves, continuing to focus on grassroots initiatives and amplifying voices often overlooked by mainstream narratives. One particularly poignant moment occurred during a visit to South Africa, where they met with survivors of apartheid and advocates working toward racial reconciliation. A young activist named Thandiwe stood up during a town hall meeting, tears streaming down her face as she recounted years of discrimination and struggle. "I used to hate those who hurt my family," she admitted. "But listening to your message has helped me forgive, not because they deserve it, but because I deserve peace." Her words moved everyone present, including Keanu, who later confessed it was one of the most powerful moments of his life. By the time they returned to Rome, the impact of their work was undeniable. Grassroots movements inspired by their message had sprung up in cities around the world, united by a shared commitment to truth, justice, and reconciliation. People from different backgrounds and beliefs came together, proving that connection transcended boundaries. For Pope Leo XIV and Keanu Reeves, this was validation that their efforts were making a difference, not through flashy headlines or celebrity endorsements, but through genuine human connection. Yet, neither man saw this as the end of their journey. If anything, it was only the beginning. There were still countless stories to tell, bridges to build, and hearts to heal. As they sat together one evening in the papal gardens, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, they reflected on how far they had come, and how much farther they still had to go. "This isn't about us," Pope Leo XIV said softly. "It never was. It's about reminding people of what we already know deep down, that we're stronger together than we are apart." Keanu nodded, a thoughtful smile playing on his lips. "And maybe," he added, reminding ourselves of that along the way. Together, they gazed out at the horizon, knowing that the road ahead would be challenging but confident that every step taken in love and compassion brought them closer to a brighter future, for themselves and for the world. As weeks turned into months, the partnership between Pope Leo XIV and Keanu Reeves continued to grow stronger, fueled by their shared vision of truth, justice, and reconciliation. Their travels took them to places few would expect a pope or a Hollywood star to visit: remote villages in Africa, refugee camps in the Middle East, inner-city neighborhoods plagued by violence, and indigenous communities fighting for their rights. Each location brought new stories, new challenges, and new opportunities to connect with people who had been overlooked or forgotten by the rest of the world. One of their most memorable journeys was to a small town in Guatemala, nestled deep within lush green mountains. The community there had suffered greatly after a natural disaster destroyed homes and livelihoods. Despite years of hardship, the people refused to give up. They rebuilt what they could with their own hands, working together to create something out of nothing. When Pope Leo XIV and Keanu arrived, they were greeted not with despair but with music, laughter, and warm smiles. It was a celebration of survival, resilience, and hope, a stark reminder that joy could be found even in the darkest times. During their stay, they joined locals as they worked on rebuilding projects. Pope Leo XIV rolled up his sleeves alongside villagers, helping mix cement and carry bricks under the blazing sun. His presence inspired others to join in, creating a sense of unity among everyone present. Meanwhile, Keanu spent time with children, teaching them simple magic tricks he had learned over the years. Laughter filled the air as wide-eyed kids marveled at cards disappearing and reappearing before their eyes. For those brief moments, the weight of their struggles seemed to lift, replaced by wonder and delight. At night, they gathered around campfires, sharing stories beneath a sky dotted with stars. An elderly man named Carlos spoke about losing his home and nearly giving up until neighbors rallied around him, offering food and shelter. "We realized we weren't alone," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "That's when we started to rebuild, not just our houses but our spirits." Listening intently, Pope Leo XIV nodded, his expression thoughtful. "This is what faith looks like," he said quietly. "Not just believing in God, but believing in each other." Keanu chimed in, recalling a similar lesson from his own life. "When I lost my best friend River, I felt completely broken," he admitted. "But then strangers reached out, fans, friends, even people I barely knew, and reminded me I wasn't alone. That's why this work matters so much to me. If we can remind others of that same truth, maybe they'll find strength too." Back in Vatican City, their team continued transforming these experiences into content that resonated globally. Documentaries featuring raw footage from their trips aired on streaming platforms, reaching audiences far beyond traditional religious circles. Social media campaigns encouraged viewers to share their own stories of kindness and resilience using Hashtags like Truth in Action and Together, We Rise. These efforts sparked a wave of participation, with millions contributing photos, videos, and written accounts of how they were making a difference in their communities. Their message also began influencing larger institutions. Corporations pledged donations to causes aligned with their mission, while schools incorporated lessons on empathy and forgiveness into their curriculums. Universities invited Pope Leo XIV and Keanu to deliver keynote speeches, where they urged students to use their education and privilege to uplift others. You have power, Keanu told a crowd of young graduates during one such event. But true greatness isn't measured by what you achieve for yourself. It's measured by how you help those around you. Despite their growing influence, both men remained grounded, refusing to let fame or success distract them from their purpose. They avoided luxurious accommodations, choosing instead to live simply and immerse themselves fully in the lives of those they met. In Bangladesh, they slept on mats in a cramped room alongside factory workers advocating for fair wages. In Brazil, they joined activists protesting deforestation, marching side by side through rain-soaked streets. Their humility endeared them to people everywhere, proving that leadership didn't require titles or wealth. It required action and authenticity. Critics still lingered, questioning whether their efforts were sustainable or merely temporary fixes. Some argued that systemic issues like poverty, racism, and inequality couldn't be solved through acts of kindness alone. But Pope Leo XIV addressed these concerns head-on during an interview with a major news outlet. Kindness is not a solution in itself, he explained. It's a starting point. When we show compassion, we open doors to understanding. And when we understand each other, we begin to see solutions where none existed before. Keanu echoed this sentiment, emphasizing the importance of grassroots movements. Change starts small, he said. It starts with individuals deciding to do better, for themselves, for their families, for their neighbors. Once enough people make that choice, it becomes impossible to ignore. Their persistence paid off in unexpected ways. One day, while visiting a Native American reservation in the United States, they met a young woman named Elena who had dedicated her life to preserving her tribe's culture and land. She shared stories of elders passing down traditions through song and dance, of children learning ancestral languages, and of the ongoing battle against corporations seeking to exploit their resources. Moved by her passion, Pope Leo XIV promised to amplify her cause on a global scale. Within weeks, international organizations began supporting the tribe's efforts, providing legal aid and financial resources to protect their territory. Stories like Elena's became the backbone of their movement, showcasing how individual actions could spark widespread change. People worldwide began organizing events inspired by their message. A group in Australia hosted a festival celebrating diversity, inviting immigrants to share their cultures through food, art, and storytelling. In Japan, volunteers cleaned beaches, littered with plastic waste, turning trash into sculptures symbolizing environmental awareness. Even celebrities joined the cause, using their platforms to highlight lesser-known heroes working tirelessly behind the scenes. As momentum grew, Pope Leo XIV and Keanu decided to hold a global summit aimed at uniting changemakers from all walks of life. Held in Rome, the event brought together activists, artists, scientists, and spiritual leaders under one roof. Over 3 days, attendees participated in workshops, panel discussions, and collaborative brainstorming sessions designed to tackle pressing issues like climate change, education access, and social justice. The atmosphere buzzed with energy as participants exchanged ideas and formed partnerships that would last long after the summit ended. On the final day, Pope Leo XIV delivered a closing speech that left no one unmoved. "We are standing at a crossroads," he began, his voice steady yet filled with urgency. "The choices we make today will shape the future of humanity. Will we continue down paths of division and destruction? Or will we choose connection, compassion, and creation?" He paused, scanning the room before continuing. "I believe in the goodness of people. I believe in our ability to rise above fear and anger. And I believe that together, We can build a world where everyone has a seat at the table. Keanu followed, with a heartfelt plea, urging everyone to keep pushing forward despite obstacles. There will be days when it feels like nothing is changing, he admitted. Days when the problems seem too big, the odds too stacked against us. But remember this, every act of kindness matters. Every voice heard matters. Every step taken toward justice matters. So don't stop. Keep going. Because somewhere, someone is counting on you. By the time the summit concluded, it was clear their movement had evolved into something greater than either man had imagined. What started as a simple idea, a collaboration between a pope and an actor, had blossomed into a global network of individuals committed to making the world a better place. For Pope Leo XIV and Keanu Reeves, this was proof that even the smallest seeds could grow into mighty trees if nurtured with care and love. Yet they knew the journey was far from over. Challenges lay ahead, as did moments of doubt and uncertainty. But armed with faith, determination, and an unshakable belief in the power of human connection, they pressed onward, ready to face whatever came next. Together, they had ignited a spark, a flame of hope that burned brightly in hearts across the globe. And as long as it continued to shine, they knew anything was possible. As the months rolled on, the partnership between Pope Leo XIV and Keanu Reeves evolved into something far greater than either of them had initially envisioned. Their message of truth, justice, and reconciliation wasn't just resonating, it was transforming lives. People from all walks of life were inspired to take action in their own communities, creating a ripple effect that reached every corner of the globe. Yet for both men, the work was far from easy. Each step forward brought new challenges, moments of doubt, and reminders of how deeply entrenched some problems were. But they faced these obstacles together, drawing strength from their shared purpose and the countless stories of resilience they encountered along the way. One of their most impactful trips took them to Ukraine, a country still reeling from years of conflict. The scars of war were everywhere, crumbling buildings, empty streets, and families torn apart by loss. Despite the devastation, there was an undeniable spirit of perseverance among the people. In one town, they met a woman named Olena who ran a small orphanage out of her home. She cared for children whose parents had either died in the fighting or abandoned them due to hardship. With no government support and limited resources, she relied entirely on donations and her own determination to keep the orphanage running. Pope Leo XIV and Keanu spent hours with Olena, listening as she recounted the struggles of raising dozens of children on her own. Her voice trembled when she spoke about the nights she went hungry so the kids could eat, but it grew strong again when she talked about their laughter and dreams for the future. These children deserve a chance, she said firmly. They are not just victims of war, they are the hope of tomorrow. Her words struck a chord with both men, reinforcing their belief in the importance of nurturing the next generation. Keanu immediately began brainstorming ways to help. Using his connections in Hollywood, he organized fundraisers and rallied fellow actors to contribute. Within weeks, supplies started pouring in: food, clothing, school materials, and even medical equipment. Pope Leo XIII worked with local churches and international organizations to ensure the aid reached those who needed it most. Together, they didn't just provide temporary relief. They helped lay the foundation for long-term recovery, ensuring the orphanage would continue thriving for years to come. Their efforts in Ukraine became a model for other initiatives around the world. Whether addressing famine in East Africa, supporting education programs in India, or advocating for mental health awareness in Europe, Pope Leo XIV and Keanu approached each issue with the same level of dedication and care. They understood that true change required more than goodwill. It demanded collaboration, innovation, and sustained commitment. This philosophy guided everything they did, earning them respect from skeptics and supporters alike. Back at the Vatican, their team continued, expanding their reach through technology and media. Podcasts featuring interviews with changemakers gained millions of listeners, while virtual events allowed people from different continents to connect and share ideas. One particularly popular series focused on everyday heroes, people like Olena, whose quiet acts of courage often went unnoticed. Each episode highlighted a new story, reminding audiences that anyone, regardless of background or circumstance, could make a difference. Social media remained a cornerstone of their strategy, amplifying voices and fostering a sense of global community. Hashtags like Dachinawa Truth in Action and Taishin Together We Rise trended regularly, accompanied by posts showcasing acts of kindness big and small. A farmer in Kenya shared photos of crops donated to neighboring villages. A teacher in Canada posted videos of students organizing drives for homeless shelters. Even celebrities joined in, using their platforms to highlight lesser-known activists, working tirelessly behind the scenes. These collective efforts created a tapestry of hope, proving that humanity's capacity for compassion knew no bounds. Despite their successes, Pope Leo XIV and Keanu remained acutely aware of the criticisms leveled against them. Some accused them of oversimplifying complex issues, arguing that systemic problems couldn't be solved through feel-good campaigns. Others dismissed their work as performative, claiming it lacked substance. While these critiques stung, they also served as motivation to dig deeper, to prove that their movement was more than surface-level activism. During a visit to a refugee camp in Jordan, Pope Leo XIV addressed this skepticism directly. Sitting cross-legged on the ground alongside displaced families, he listened as a young man named Ahmed expressed frustration with governments and NGOs failing to deliver meaningful solutions. "I appreciate what you're doing here," Ahmed said cautiously, "but sometimes it feels like band-aids on bullet wounds." The Pope nodded thoughtfully, acknowledging the validity of Ahmed's concerns. "You're absolutely right," he replied. "No single person or organization can fix everything overnight. What we're trying to do is plant seeds of hope, understanding, and action. We may not see the full harvest today, but if enough people water those seeds, change will come." Keanu chimed in, sharing his own perspective. "It's easy to get discouraged when progress feels slow," he admitted. "But look around you. Look at what these people have built despite everything stacked against them. That's proof that change is possible. It starts small, but it grows stronger with time." Their honesty resonated deeply with Ahmed and others present, sparking candid conversations about the role of grassroots movements in driving systemic change. By the end of their visit, several residents had volunteered to lead local initiatives aimed at improving living conditions within the camp. These efforts eventually caught the attention of international aid organizations, leading to increased funding and resources for the community. As their influence expanded, invitations poured in from governments, corporations, and institutions eager to partner with them. Though flattered, Pope Leo XIV and Keanu carefully vetted each opportunity, ensuring alignment with their mission. One such collaboration involved tech companies developing affordable tools for remote learning, enabling children in underserved areas to access quality education. Another partnered with renewable energy firms to bring solar power to off-grid communities, reducing reliance on fossil fuels and empowering locals economically. Through it all, they never lost sight of why they started this journey, to remind people of their shared humanity. This focus became especially clear during a trip to Australia, where they joined indigenous leaders fighting to preserve sacred lands threatened by mining operations. Elders shared stories passed down through generations, explaining the cultural significance of the land and its role in maintaining ecological balance. Moved by their passion, Pope Leo XIV and Keanu vowed to support their cause, leveraging their platform to raise awareness globally. Their advocacy paid off when international pressure forced the mining company to halt operations pending further review. While the victory was bittersweet, years of damage couldn't be undone overnight. It marked a turning point for the community. For the first time in decades, they felt heard and valued, inspiring renewed hope for the future. By now, the movement had taken on a life of its own, transcending borders and uniting people across faiths, cultures, and ideologies. Schools incorporated lessons on empathy and forgiveness into their curriculums. Corporations adopted ethical practices prioritizing sustainability and social responsibility. Even political leaders began referencing the principles of truth, justice, and reconciliation in speeches and policy proposals. What started as a simple idea, a collaboration between a pope and an actor, had blossomed into a global force for good. Yet for Pope Leo XIV and Keanu, the true measure of success lay not in headlines or statistics, but in the personal transformations they witnessed. Daily, a former gang member in Los Angeles turned his life around after attending one of their workshops, dedicating himself to mentoring at-risk youth. A bullied teenager in South Korea found solace in their message, channeling her pain into art that inspired thousands. A grieving mother in Italy forgave the driver responsible for her son's death, choosing healing over hatred. These stories, though seemingly small, carried immense weight, proving that love and compassion had the power to heal even the deepest wounds. As they prepared for their next project, a documentary chronicling their journey thus far, they reflected on how far they'd come. From humble beginnings in the papal library to standing shoulder to shoulder with changemakers worldwide, their partnership had defied expectations at every turn. Neither man sought recognition or glory. Their reward came in knowing they had touched lives and ignited a movement rooted in authenticity and love. On a quiet evening in Vatican City, as twilight painted the sky in hues of gold and purple, Pope Leo XIV and Keanu sat together in the gardens, sipping tea and watching the stars emerge one by one. "Do you ever wonder if we're making a real difference?" Keanu asked softly, breaking the silence. The Pope smiled, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Every day," he admitted. "But then I remember the faces, the smiles, the tears, the hope, and I know we're on the right path." Keanu nodded, a peaceful expression settling over his features. "Yeah," he said simply. "Me too." In that moment, surrounded by beauty and serenity, they allowed themselves a rare pause to appreciate the magnitude of what they had achieved. The road ahead would undoubtedly be challenging, filled the final chapter of Pope Leo XIII and Keanu. Reeves's journey began not with a grand announcement or a dramatic event, but with a quiet moment of reflection. Over the years, their partnership had grown into something extraordinary, a movement that transcended borders, cultures, and belief systems. Yet, as they stood on the cusp of completing their documentary chronicling their shared mission, both men felt a deep sense of gratitude mixed with humility. They knew their work would continue long after the cameras stopped rolling, but this milestone marked an opportunity to pause and take stock of all they had accomplished together. The documentary premiered in Rome, drawing thousands of people from around the world to St. Peter's Square. Giant screens were set up for those unable to secure seats inside the historic venue, while millions more tuned in online. As the lights dimmed and the opening scenes unfolded, the audience was transported back to the beginning, their first meeting in the papal library, their travels to places ravaged by conflict and hardship, and the countless stories of resilience they had encountered along the way. Each frame captured raw emotion, tears shed during moments of loss, laughter shared in the face of adversity, and hands extended in acts of kindness. The film didn't shy away from challenges either. It highlighted criticisms they faced, doubts within themselves, and the sheer weight of trying to address issues so deeply rooted in society. But it also celebrated victories, big and small, that proved change was possible when people came together with purpose. One particularly moving segment featured Elena, the Native American activist whose fight to preserve her tribe's land had inspired global support. Another showcased Olena, the Ukrainian woman running an orphanage, now thriving thanks to donations and resources mobilized by their efforts. These stories served as reminders that behind every statistic or headline were real people whose lives had been touched. When the credits rolled, the crowd erupted into applause, many wiping away tears. Pope Leo XIV and Keanu walked onto the stage, hand in hand, greeted by a standing ovation that seemed to go on forever. For several minutes, neither man spoke. They simply stood there, soaking in the energy of the moment. Finally, the Pope stepped forward, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. "We did not start this journey seeking recognition," he began. We started because we believed in the power of connection, in the idea that no matter where we come from or what we believe, we are all part of one human family. This documentary is not about us. It's about you, the teachers, farmers, activists, parents, and children who have chosen to make a difference in your own corners of the world. Keanu followed, his tone warm and conversational. When we first met, I wasn't sure how much impact two people could really have. But then I saw what happens when you plant seeds of hope. They grow in ways you can't imagine. You've shown us that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about acting despite fear. That forgiveness isn't easy, but it's freeing. And that love, real, unconditional love, is the most powerful force we have. Their words resonated deeply, sparking conversations that continued late into the night. People lingered in the square, sharing their own stories and brainstorming ways to keep the momentum going. Strangers exchanged contact information, forming partnerships that would span continents. A young girl approached Keanu shyly, handing him a drawing she had made, a picture of the earth surrounded by smiling faces holding hands. "Thank you for reminding us we're not alone," she whispered before running back to her parents. Keanu held the drawing close, visibly moved. In the weeks that followed, the documentary aired globally, reaching audiences far beyond its initial premiere. Schools incorporated it into lesson plans, community centers hosted screenings, and families gathered to watch together. Social media buzzed with reactions, posts praising its authenticity, memes celebrating the unlikely duo, and heartfelt messages about how the film had inspired viewers to take action. The hashtags, "Our Truth," "In Action," and "Together We Rise" trended once again, accompanied by photos and videos of people putting their newfound resolve into practice. For Pope Leo XIV and Keanu, the response reinforced their belief in humanity's capacity for good. Yet they remained grounded, knowing their work was far from over. In fact, the overwhelming support only fueled their determination to push further, to tackle even bigger challenges. They announced plans to launch a foundation dedicated to funding grassroots initiatives worldwide. Unlike traditional charities, this organization would focus on empowering local leaders rather than imposing external solutions. Its motto? Change starts with you. Their first major initiative involved addressing climate change, a crisis affecting every corner of the planet. Partnering with scientists, activists, and indigenous communities, they developed programs aimed at promoting sustainable practices while respecting cultural traditions. In Kenya, they supported reforestation projects led by women's groups. In Brazil, they worked with tribes to protect the Amazon rainforest. And in Europe, they collaborated with schools to teach students about environmental stewardship through hands-on activities, and education remained another key focus. Recognizing that knowledge was the foundation of lasting change, they expanded efforts to provide access to quality learning opportunities for underserved populations. Mobile classrooms equipped with solar-powered technology brought lessons to remote villages. Scholarships enabled girls in patriarchal societies to pursue higher education, and mentorship programs paired struggling youth with role models who understood their struggles firsthand. Through it all, Pope Leo XIV and Keanu stayed true to their roots, prioritizing authenticity over glamour. They avoided red carpets and flashy events, preferring instead to spend time in the trenches alongside those they sought to help. Whether visiting flood victims in Bangladesh, meeting with refugees in Turkey, or joining protests against racial injustice in America, they showed up, not as celebrities or figureheads, but as fellow human beings committed to making a difference. Critics still surfaced occasionally, questioning whether their approach was scalable or effective enough. Some argued that systemic issues required top-down solutions rather than bottom-up efforts. Others dismissed their work as naive idealism. But Pope Leo XIV addressed these concerns head-on during a press conference in Geneva. Systemic change begins with individual action, he explained. Yes, governments and institutions play a critical role, but without grassroots movements pushing for accountability and innovation, progress stalls. We're not replacing one method with another, we're complementing them. Keanu echoed this sentiment, emphasizing the importance of patience and persistence. Change doesn't happen overnight, he said. It's messy, frustrating, and sometimes heartbreaking. But it's also beautiful, rewarding, and worth every ounce of effort, so don't give up. Keep showing up, keep speaking out, and keep believing in the power of love. By the end of the year, their foundation had become a beacon of hope for millions. Stories of transformation poured in daily, from a farmer in India adopting eco-friendly techniques to a teenager in Mexico organizing clean water drives for her village. These accounts reminded everyone involved that even the smallest actions could create ripples of impact. Together, they had proven that unity wasn't just a lofty ideal. It was a tangible reality waiting to be embraced. As 2024 drew to a close, Pope Leo XIV and Keanu found themselves back in Vatican City, sitting in the same garden where their journey had begun. The air was crisp with winter chill, but the stars above sparkled brightly, casting a soft glow over the ancient city. Neither man spoke for a long time, content to simply sit in silence, reflecting on the road they had traveled. Finally, Keanu broke the quiet. "Do you think we'll ever see the finish line?" he asked, his voice tinged with both humor and curiosity. Pope Leo XIV chuckled softly. "I don't think there is a finish line," he replied. "Not really. There will always be more work to do, more hearts to heal, more bridges to build. But that's okay, because every step we take brings us closer to the world we dream of, a world rooted in truth, justice, and reconciliation." Keanu nodded, a thoughtful smile playing on his lips. "Yeah," he said, "and maybe that's the point. It's not about arriving somewhere. It's about walking the path together." With that, they rose from their seats, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Their partnership had defied expectations, proving that unlikely alliances could ignite profound transformations. What started as a simple idea, a pope reaching out to an actor, had blossomed into a global movement inspiring millions to live with purpose and compassion. Together, they had reminded the world of its shared humanity, planting seeds of hope that would continue to grow for generations to come. And though the journey was far from over, they walked forward with faith, knowing that as long as love guided their steps, anything was possible.